people might have been rapt, but there might be someone, doing something over there that they shouldn't be doing or yelling or something, and he's trying to get their attention at all times. And that's a big focus of the storyteller version of him, is to reach an audience, to get to you so you enjoy it. I think of him also as like a traveling troupe of theatrical artists who are really genuinely interested in getting you engaged in the story. Or like I think most Hollywood filmmakers who get a lot of flack and for doing the same kind of story over and over again. But that's because part of what they're focused on is what the audience actually wants. Now, we're not going to get into why that could be problematic. So to recap this, there are two types of translators fundamentally. They're what I call the monumentalists, or the kind of Homer as a relic that needs to be, the source material has to be revered in such a way that it can't really be touched and altered too much. We need to have, in other words, all the patronymics, which are the naming of a character by their father, son of Peleus, son of Atreus. We need to have all the labels that they would have had. We need to have all of the different types of tribal names that nobody today would ever know anything about. And that all has to be there. And as much as possible, we even need to go and return to that era of the ancient Greek and try to get a modern 21st century Western person to feel like a Greek audience member. And they explicitly say this often, these translators. Now, these translators are almost always professors. They're almost always, they teach Greek and Homer year after year. So the progression normally is something like this. The teacher teaches at a university or a college, or maybe a high school, and they're teaching based on some translation. And, the students read it, they read it, and they go back and forth. Over the years, that professor might start wanting to create their own classroom version so they can teach their own version in the classroom. And so that's the mentality and the mode that they're thinking of. So even the best of these people are inundated with an audience that is classroom oriented. Whether they realize it or not, they are infected with this kind of orientation. Now, this is a perfectly legitimate product. In fact, one of my favorite personal translations is one of these kinds of translations, in my opinion, but it was not my first, or it was not my first like awakening moment with Homer, because that required something earlier. It required a different kind of translator. So I think of these monumentalists, I call them, of Homer, treating Homer like a museum artifact to be, meticulously stayed together like a scholar does. It's perfectly legitimate. It is not good for general readers, and it should not be marketed as such. This is my only beef with them in the most part, is that they tend to have this authoritarian approach to their marketing where they say, everyone gets excited. It's like, look, here's the new translation. It's really exciting. It's by this great professor. She's got all the accolades, all the grand blah, blah. And that's what, so it's for general readers. And it's like, no. It's not for general readers. You should not read Emily Wilson or any of these first. It's too confusing. There's too many things they do not do to help you get into the flow of understanding and just having a first experience that will hopefully trigger you to have other experiences and learn more and listen more. I mean, just as an example, man, if you get into the Odyssey, there is a wonderful reading on Audible of the Robert Fagles of this one, the Robert Fagles translation of the Iliad, read by Serene McKellen, who's got the greatest voice ever. And I would just kind of listen to that. And you cannot, by the way, you cannot listen to that if you have not read other translations and the Fagles. It's just, in my opinion, you'll be like, what is going on? It's too confusing. But once you have it, oh man, it is a spectacular experience. So the monumentalist mindset is that Homer is essentially almost like an architectural ruin that we have to preserve specifically. He's a museum artifact. So put him behind glass, make him perfect, pristine, as much like the Homer as possible. So these people are always more in line with the reverence for Homer. And here's where it's most important. The meaning is located in that kind of conservation and precision. That's where they spend most of their time and effort, not on what does an audience today need to hear and see and experience. This really has a kind of mentality of, you to read this, you need to join the classroom, go on this big 9-month journey, sign on the dotted line, take their course. Nothing wrong with that. But again, just I do that too. So I'm not against this, but I want you to understand the monumentalist mentality. Now I'm going to play a little clip here of Emily Wilson. And she is a translator of the Iliad and the Odyssey. Very controversial recently because, or I guess a few years ago, because of her translation of the Odyssey. I have not read her translation of the Odyssey. I did read the first opening passage. I saw no reason for that one translation. I thought, if just going to rile up the internet bros, it seems like that's what she was doing. She seemed to succeed. I don't see anything overly woke in the Iliad. I don't see anything like that in the Iliad. There may be something wokish in the Odyssey. I did think it was odd to translate the opening passage and call Odysseus a complicated man. I think that is just it just throws off the whole fundamental important understanding of what we're trying to get at with understanding this character that has fascinated people for thousands of years. One of the most famous 19th century poems is called Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson, the poet laureate. And he's talking about Ulysses, who's the Roman version of Odysseus. That is Odysseus. And it's like, to call him a complicated man in a modern context seems just really stupid. I don't know how else to call it. Now her translation of the Iliad, I read through most of it actually, and I thought it was just fine. I don't know that we need it. But she has every right to write, to write it. I still think the Fagles is better. It's more enjoyable to read. It's easier to experience. But I think this is just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's like, and if you could sell I think she sold over 500,000 books so far. If you could do that, I am always, my hat is off to you. Go for it. I'm all about that. I don't think there's anything negative in it that I can see.